My name is Scott Frank. I'm the founder of the Digital Empowerment Project. I'm super excited that I have one of the coolest gigs ever. I get to travel the country speaking to middle schools, high schools, parent groups, civic organizations, church groups. I just want to share my message. My background, 42 years in law enforcement. Over a decade of that, I was with Ohio's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. My role specifically with the task force was that I posed online as a teen. So I have literally thousands of hours in apps, the same apps that our kids are using. I understand what it's like to be a kid online, what the pressures are, the fun that you can have, the potential risk. So I'm super excited to be part of the Smart Social podcast.
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Oakes. This is our District Talk segment where we interview district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media so those students can someday shine online. Now, let's get back to the interview. Hello and welcome to the smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Oakes. In this episode, we're going to talk to you about how predators are contacting students. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Josh, I'm fine. I'm close with my kids. It's okay. I don't need to worry about that. Maybe on my car, there'll be a light that pops up if something's wrong. Like the government will contact me, right? I mean, I'll know. Not in my backyard. It's not going to happen here, right? Well, unfortunately, that's what the predators want you to think. And in fact, the predators are hoping that you think you're super close with your kids. We have brought in the best expert, somebody who I admire, who traverses the whole country, just like I used to do before Smart Social became an online platform to help districts just like yours and schools just like yours. We have Scott Frank here, former law enforcement officer who's amazing. He has incredible stories. We're going to do a long form. So in case you missed one of our membership videos, we're going to ask Scott a bunch of tips, tactics. I consider this man a friend. We're fortunate to have him to where he has a big heart. He wants to help people. And maybe many of you know, there are companies that have in-house good hackers. There are companies that will do what's called a penetration test to see if your bank has any ways that bad people can get in. And they actually hire the good people to pretend like they're the bad people. They're called white hat hackers. They're the good people that go, we need to build a fortress that's safe. Well, guess what? We're talking to one. Scott Frank today was the good person. He's the white hat hacker that was law enforcement agencies would say, we need you to pretend like you're the bad person and see who's out there, who's going to contact you and all this stuff. So he was paid to set up these accounts to see if these bad people would instantly contact a 9-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, all these different ages. He has incredible stories. Without further ado, here we go. Scott, welcome to the podcast. It's so good to have you here today.
Josh, thank you. I must say, I love your energy. I always do, but I also have to interject and say, no, there's not a red light that will blink when your kids are talking to predators. And no, the government will not notify the parents. I just wanted to set that record straight.
Exactly, right? And I'm being facetious here, but a lot of us think like, I'm fine. And we like to tell parents, you probably are. But the predators really want most parents to not know what could happen to them. And that's what we're here today to talk about. All right, let's start with the biggest question. You you had dozens and dozens of accounts that were a honeypot, if you will, that were trying to attract. If you get a fly in your house, you can put this fly trap and it smells really bad, but all the flies want to go in there. And that's what you were trying to do, is to get all the bad people so that you could capture them. I want you to share a story, if you don't mind, of something that might have gone wrong.
Yeah. Josh, when I travel the country, one of the stories I share, I actually share a video slash audio of Kate, who, when I first met her, she was an 11th grade student. Um, like so many other students, she was athletic. She was doing great academics, kind of a feisty young woman. Um, but I will say at this time, what she didn't have that I find in common with so many teens that are victims is she didn't have a relationship with her parents when it came to how to use the internet. So she's like so many other kids. She's using the app Snapchat. She had her Snap Map enabled, which in essence is her GPS. And one day she received a message that literally changed her life. And that message was simple. It was, "Hey, how was soccer practice?" And to back up a little bit for this story, 3 weeks prior to receiving that message, she had accepted a connection request on Snapchat from somebody she didn't know. So what she didn't know was that for that 3 weeks, he was watching her feed, watching her stories, and watching her Snap Map, which in essence shared her location. So she was at soccer practice. She drove home from soccer practice. She received that message, "Hey, how was soccer practice?" And if she were here to tell the story, she would say, "Hey, I just assumed it was somebody in my inner circle. I would just assume it was somebody that I knew because how else would they know that I just got home from soccer practice?" Like so often happens, that predator that contacted her did what predators do. He was tech savvy, he was kid savvy, he manipulated, negotiated with her social needs of affection, belonging, and recognition. Over a very short period of time, they developed a relationship. She described it as online dating. Although at first she refused, but she sent one nude photo. And like I share with the middle school and high school kids, sometimes it only takes one. And that photo changed everything because his demeanor changed. And in her video, she talks about how he flipped a switch, no longer needed to have that relationship because he had that nude photo. He engaged in sextortion, which was threatening to expose that photo. She went to her best friend who gave her very poor advice, which was just to ignore him. The messages continued. And finally, she showed the message to a parent who in turn contacted me. It's just tough stuff. Um, my heart breaks a little bit because she didn't have that rapport with the parents, didn't have that dialogue. She didn't understand the simple things like, GPS can put you at risk and how do you decide who you should or shouldn't let into your inner circle in the digital world. So way too many sad stories to share, but that one I share with kids across this country.
Such a powerful story. And thank you for sharing that. I want to pause for just a sec for all the parents listening to this right now. You maybe on couple different things might be going through your head right now. First of all, that'll never happen to my kid. That happens all the time to people that Scott and I talk with. But I want to pause for a second. As we talk to parents, and Scott, you might have as well, I want to remind people, and our job at Smart Social is to reinvent the way we engage people so that we can protect more people, right? We can't keep saying the same things. So I want to pause and say common sense does not, I'm going to say something bold. Common sense does not exist anymore. Parents, if you're listening to this right now, the common sense that your kids are getting are from their very mentors who now are no longer you. They're the people on YouTube, the people on TikTok, the people they're learning from who they spend 1 to 3 hours with a night. Those are their new mentors. So the common sense that will come out that is being injected in your students, whether you agree or disagree with me, and I say the majority of the world agrees with me because we're here for one reason, to protect your kids so they can someday use these tools to shine online. Common sense is gone. It used to be parents know way more than you 20 years ago because there was no way to get knowledge. Now your kids are connected with billions of people online. So if we do not have that rich dialogue between a trusted adult, it could be the cool aunt or uncle, could be someone that they feel comfortable going to, like a teacher, or it could be you, mom and dad. And if they don't have that dialogue, like Scott just said, just shared in that example, then unfortunately common sense is thrown out the window. They're learning from TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, especially YouTube, all these people, and they're learning the values, they're learning decision making, they're learning anger management, they're learning how to be how to behave online. So keep that in mind, that the only safety app in the world, and I love my friends at Bark, we're good friends with them and all these other companies. We love Microsoft and Google, but I'm sorry, Microsoft and Google will not wake up in the 3 a.m. and say, something doesn't feel right. The only app in the world that is going to protect your kids is that rich dialogue that you have with them, or a trusted adult, the cool aunt or uncle, whoever that is, whoever they feel comfortable going to. And Scott, disagree with me, agree with me. Where are you at on that?
Well, Josh, I love your passion. I mean, absolutely love it. One of the takeaways I try to give my parents is that parents need to be fierce. We have this passivity that, like you said earlier, that it's not going to happen to my kid, and it's not that big of a deal. I go so far. My heart tells me, and I share it with parents. I feel like we're at war. I feel like we're in a battle for all the things that you mentioned. Our kids' decision-making skills, their values, their goals. Our kids are spending hour after hour, and I think you mentioned 1 to 3 hours on YouTube. I mean, the common sense media statistics are absolutely through the roof on our screen time and how that has transformed from screen use to screen addiction. But I just want to get parents fired up. I want to get them engaged. I want to get them educated so they can protect and empower their kids. Because at the end of the day, it's our kids that are online. It's our kids that are choosing what YouTube videos to watch and what friend requests to accept and what image to look at and what image to send. So it's not always as simple as just putting software on our kid's phone and letting the software parent. Yes, that's a tool in the toolbox, but our parents need to be fierce. They need to be engaged. They need to absolutely be committed.
I was at a wedding this weekend, and a mom of a 13-year-old was sitting next to me, and they said, "Yeah, we bought our son, a device at 13, and cool." And one of the struggles was, and a lot of parents are thinking this right now. A lot of schools are saying, "Okay, the computers are down today. Everybody, pull your phone out. Let's do this way." And there's a little bit of a pressure there. It's not easy being a parent of a 10 to 18-year-old right now. In addition, these parents said, "Yeah, but our son was kind of going to be bullied if he didn't have a device. Every other kid had that device." So there's that pressure. We hear you. We feel that as well. And that was one of the reasons. And they said, "Well, we don't." And here's another concern, Scott. This plays into what you're talking about. It. Forgive my enthusiasm. This is the most passionate thing I can have in my life. This is my life's dedication. So is it. It's yours as well, Scott. One of the biggest concerns was the parents said, "I don't want to infringe on his privacy." And that was a bit of a red flag because, as you would say, Scott, the predators are going to give the three things kids want, right? I want you to go through the three social needs that kids have, explain to people, because parents, please listen into this. He's going to dive into this. There's two things I want you to think about right now, parents, as you're listening to this. Millions of parents have said to us at Smart Social, "I'm not tech savvy." And we tell them, let's change those words to, "I'm learning this app." Because what you feed into your brain becomes how you act. And that's what people are doing to your kids on YouTube and Snapchat. So let's try and set aside the phrase, "I'm not tech savvy," and instead say, "I'm learning this app." And let's pick something you're learning, number one. And number two, if you don't give what I'm going to have Scott walk through the three needs that your kids have emotionally. If you don't give these to your kids, the predators are way smarter and they're going to feed your kids this nutrition that it's like a sugar for them. They're like, "Whoa, I feel loved. I'm being told I'm beautiful." I mean, these are what the predators are going to say. "You're gorgeous. I would never treat you that way. Your parents don't understand you." They're going to dive into these words that every 13-year-old wants to hear when they get this device. So Scott, let's dive in. Give us an outline of what are the three things that predators understand that parents need to know about, the three emotional needs kids have.
I got to say first, your passion always gets me so fired up. I don't know of a teen that I've ever connected with or met or talked to at school. I don't think there are any exceptions. Our teens, our kids have to have three social needs: affection, belonging, and recognition. Affection, they need to be loved or liked. And I didn't say want, I said they need to be loved or liked. Belonging, they need to have a family unit. They need to fit into a social circle. And recognition, they need to be known or noticed for who they are. So in dealing with hundreds of predators, and I always say to parents, if you gave me a half hour of your time and if you read one of the chat logs where I'm engaged in a predator, you'd be as passionate as I am and as passionate as Josh is. Those three social needs, if we as trusted adults, especially parents, if we aren't talking and loving and making sure that we fulfill all three of those needs for our kids, then I'm going to tell you, if we don't do it, the internet will. If they're not feeling loved or liked, somebody's going to like them. I was told, and this breaks my heart to tell you this. I was a cop for 42 years. So I don't know, I just had this thing that when I went to work, I wanted to say, I love you. When I came home, I said, I love you, because I just wasn't really sure how the day was going to go. But my I love yous in my own home were minuscule compared to the I love yous as a teen in the digital world. So these kids are going to get those emotions that they're lacking, whether it's someone likes me or someone loves me. That the belonging, if a teen doesn't think that they fit in with everyone else, then just let them go to a social media app and just accept all the friend requests that are literally going to be pouring in. The bulk of those people at the other end of those friend requests, they're going to backfill that teen's sense of belonging. And if a teen doesn't feel that they're known or noticed, for example, if they're a 13-year-old girl and they don't think anybody notices them, they're going to send a provocative photo and everybody's going to notice them. They'll get more comments and feedback. So that really is our challenge. And what you said, Josh, is so appropriate. I think parents, at least the parents that I've dealt with, and I've trained tens of thousands of them, they come to a parent meeting. I think their first thought is, oh, Scott, can you tell me that software that I can put on my phone so that this doesn't happen to my kid? Well, technology, as you mentioned, is rapidly changing, and we can't rely on technology to parent our kids in the digital world. I always tell parents that empowerment is relational. You have to go through the steps, and I outline there's some steps for parents, but it involves loving them and knowing them, and um, taking those steps that are less than techy. So yes, I always advocate that if your kid's a gamer, for example, you should be in that game. You should at least have an understanding of what they're getting from that game and how they're feeling. But at the end of the day, how we help empower and protect our kids is really healthy dialogue, loving them, noticing the red flags. So we got to rely less on technology, and as parents, quit being overwhelmed because we don't understand all the intricacies of Snapchat. Man, we got to hold those kids and hug those kids and talk to those kids. Gosh, you got me all fired up.
Good. Unfortunately, over here at Smart Social, we have one speed, and maybe this is why God put me in this role. So I want to talk to every parent right now who's saying the following phrase, and we've heard it a million times, but my kid's not on social media. I don't need to worry about that right now. I want to tell everybody a really quick story that happened to me a few years ago. We get calls from the news all the time, and I got a call from the news in the Midwest, and they said, we want you to report in 1 hour on this story. Young girl, 13 years old. She's been abducted. Some 55-year-old man drove her to another state. And thank God we've gotten her back safely. But we want you to report on what happened. And so here's what happened. Officers come over. Mom goes, daughter drove off with some man. We can't get her back. We're trying to locate her. Oh no. What happened? What was she on? What apps was she on social media? Mom says she wasn't on social media. And this is the number one answer we get, as Smart Social has a coaching program where we listen to a lot of parents to get the best data out. So we're always listening. Parents always say, and that's fine, she's not on social media. But then the officer is smart enough to said, well, then how was she communicating? Well, she doesn't have a device. Well, then how is she communicating? Well, she does. She's allowed to use the iPad when we're all watching TV. She can sit in the corner and use the iPad. Can we see that iPad? She was on 3 apps. And I know parents are thinking right now, my kid's not on social media. This isn't happening, right? And I have another story in just a sec. And we don't want to scare you, but this happens all the time. Here's what happened. Young girl was on Pinterest, Kick Messenger, and another app. When she's posting on Pinterest, she's posting really neat stuff. Pinterest is like a poster board for both of my sisters plan their weddings on Pinterest. They're incredible. 85% female because it's visual. Their users are, it's awesome. You can really get inspiration and stuff. But Kick Messenger is an app that predators don't want you to monitor, because that's where they can message students. They can go through burner usernames. And that's what they did with this young girl. They were able to then message her, pick her up, take her, promise her things, and feed her full of the feelings that Scott just mentioned. Oh, I would never treat you the way your parents did. Oh, you're beautiful. And this, compliments, compliments, compliments. Red flags to any adult. What are you trying to sell me? Why, right? When a salesperson calls us, and thank God they got her back. But that's not, so if you find yourself saying, my kid isn't on social media, I want to pause and give everybody a free resource at smartsocial.com. When you go to smartsocial.com, if you click on the resources in the upper right, there is a big green button up there. You'll notice a big, one of the first essential resources is our digital agreement. It is 9 pages long. It is built by our army of moms here at Smart Social, just for you, parents. It's 9 pages. It's 100% free. It's our gift to you. It gives you every single question you didn't know that you needed to ask your kid about apps and usernames. And one of the things is when you go over to Billy's house or Christina's house, your best friend, you're not allowed to get their parents' extra zombie phone, the extra phone that's in the kitchen counter because it's their mom or dad's extra phone. You're not allowed to open that up and open your own Snapchat. If you don't have that dialogue, parents, right now, predators are begging you to not have a social media agreement. They are hoping for that. These evil people that Scott put behind bars want you to think my kids aren't on social, not in my backyard. It's not going to happen. And I'll be ready. I'll see a red light on the dashboard of the car. It'll let me know when my oil is low and when my kids are not safe. Scott, set me straight. What do we have right? What do we have wrong? What do you want to tell parents?
Josh, you are spot on. Sometimes parents will come up to me during a parent program and they'll say, Scott, I love what you're doing, but I just want you to know that my child's not on social media. In fact, we're not even going to give them a phone until they're 18. I understand why they think that may work, but there's two things. They're most likely going to be on social media, whether it's at a friend's house, it's at the library. Kids are kids. But the other issue is if if that's the approach that a parent takes when that young adult now turns 18, the first stop they're going to make is going to be where? The Verizon store. And now they're in this world that they're not prepared for and they don't understand. And I also tell parents what I advocate and what you advocate, that dialogue and understanding social needs. That's not going to hurt if they're not on social media. That's just good parenting to monitor and to help your kids with their affection, belonging, and recognition. So even if they're not on social media, to me, that's just good, healthy, loving parenting. So I just, again, it's not giving advice to parents that you got to go out and be tech savvy and you got to know this and that, right? We just need to love our kids and pay attention to our kids and have that ability for them to come to us if they need us and have that healthy dialogue.
So true. One last parallel, one last story. We've all heard of the things where your kids, parents, your kids go over to Billy or Johnny's house and you hear about when they came back, they let you eat that. Now, you may have a strict diet in your family or maybe not. Maybe it's like anything goes, but imagine that social media is sugar. And imagine if you're like, I'm going to go tell Scott at the end of his speech because Scott's a nutritionist. Let's pretend like Scott's a nutritionist, a digital nutritionist, yes, but a nutritionist. And you go up and you go, Scott, sugar's not allowed in our house. I know you said that sugar can do this and this and this. And trust me, I have an addiction to ice cream. I'm just going to tell you right now, I love sugar, but I have it in small amounts. What if you went up to Scott, if he was a nutritionist and said, you don't understand, sugar's not in my house. And I know all these bad things that it can do and it can affect their sleep, screen time. It can affect how they behave, screen time, right? It can affect all of these different things, not getting their homework done and all this stuff. But Scott, you don't understand. It's not in my house. Scott would probably tell you, and we all know that if they go over to Johnny's house, they're allowed to have a ton of sugar because it's that family rules. Or if they go down to the liquor store down the street, they can get that kind of stuff, or they can find it, or they can get it at school, or they can be in the school cafeteria, by the way, the Chromebooks. So if you don't have that dialogue about sugar, you can't hide them from sugar. The world will present it. That's what Scott's saying as well. And I'm saying is you got to talk to them about that substance. And in this case, the substance is strangers, drugs, dangerous situations online. Do not rely on your kids to go, why didn't you think of that? What were you doing? You are the teacher, parents, and schools will tell you this as well. This kids are at school for like 5 to 6 hours a day. They're with the parents the rest of the day, 18 hours or so. So there's more time spent at home with parents learning than there is with the teachers. We love our teachers, we love our parents, we support both, but we are all about the kid being the most resilient and well-rounded student possible. Scott, I'm gonna let you finish up. What is your last tip for parents? Scott, first of all, to everybody who wants to learn, you can go. Scott, I want you to tell us what your website is so if people want to hire you to speak, because you're just a great person. And then also, I want you to give one last tip before we wrap this up to our amazing parents and educators listening here today.
Well, first of all, Josh, thank you for your support through these years. You can learn more about what I do and my mission, including booking me, a selfless plug to speak to your high school, your middle school groups. I'm at digitalempowermentproject.com. You'll find everything you need to know. I think my final parting words is twofold. For parents, you got this. You really got this. If you can adopt the philosophy that empowerment is relational, that's where every parent can be the expert. And the back half of this, the advice I love giving the most is the good with the bad. We talk about the risk. We talk about all the less than desirable stuff and the predators and all those scary topics. Hey, don't forget, the internet is a game changer. And that's one thing I love about Smart Social. You're always talking about building positive profiles and understanding artificial intelligence. And you just do, Josh, you do so much positive stuff. And I think it's easy for parents to get lost in the less than positive and the risky stuff. But I really encourage kids and parents alike to always remember that online you can invest your time to inspire others and impact your future. So manage the risk, talk about your kids, but also be sure to embrace those amazing opportunities. Have fun, use the internet for all it's worth in the most positive and healthy ways. And keep listening to the Smart Social podcast. It's good stuff.
You're amazing, Scott. Thank you to Scott for his time today. And to the rest of you listening, remember, our goal is to keep kids safe on social media so they can someday shine online. We can't keep them from the internet, and we want our agenda is to get your kids to be amazing, employable students someday that have a great career, great job, that can see things online and think for themselves in a really positive, responsible way. That's why we call it Smart Social. Thanks to everybody who supports us and to my amazing army of moms at Smart Social who do our research and really are doing incredible work. We could not do all of this without them. If you're a school district learning more about what we do, you can reach out to Scott. You can reach out to us. Thank you to everybody. Have a great rest of the day. We'll see you soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to our smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Oakes. This episode was brought to you by our smartsocial.com VIP program. It's called the Very Informed Parent Program, which helps you engage your students with teen-led video lessons. Stay one step ahead with our premium parent newsletter and discover hidden features on trending apps on teens' phones and our 54 plus live parent and student-friendly events every single year. You can click on the link below to chat with one of our team members if you want a free pass to our VIP program to support your community with our smartsocial.com resources. And if you're a district leader who has a success story, we would love to feature you on a future episode. You can click the links below to reach out. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Have a great day.